guys, I'm Rachel from PencilStash. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to continue our Manor page from Romantic Country. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, you should probably do that first, as we're going to be starting part 2 today. We're going to do all of the greenery on the page. So the tree kind of climbing up over the house facade above the front door, the bushes on either side of the stone wall, and then the trees in the background. So I hope you enjoy. Let's head over to my desk and we can get started. I just wanted to remind everyone what the final product is going to look like. In part 2 of our series, we are going to be tackling all of the greenery on the page. So we're going to be doing this tree, the trees in the background, and then these ones right here on either side of the stone wall. And just a reminder, I did go over them in part 1, but I do have all of the colors that I used for this project available. These little cheat sheets are available on my website, PencilStash.com, and I used Faber-Castell pencils for this project, but if you don't have those, I've also provided the Prismacolor alternatives. So let's get started. So here's the walls completed, and now I think I'm going to do the foliage on the trees here. And just because these leaves sort of look kind of sparse, doesn't mean that you can't kind of play around with some of the area around it to make it look a little bit more full. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that, and these are the 4 greens that I'm gonna use, and they're all Faber-Castell: dark phthalo green, light green, juniper green, and leaf green. So let's start with our lightest color. And I am going to go in and I'm going to start just making little shapes here and just kind of not only covering the leaves, but just making little shapes as well of leaves around the existing ones. And this might take some practice, and you might just want to make it so again, this might take some practice. You might just want to kind of make it really misty and just kind of do some nice circles around it, just so that it has a little bit more weight to it. We want it to look like spring or summer, not like fall. So you can even just kind of go in really, again, kind of misty with your light colors, and then you can make a little bit more shapes out of our darker colors. There we go. So now we just have a nice light base for our tree canopy. Now we're going to go in with this leaf green and kind of do the same thing, but a little bit more strategic. So not over the whole thing. Now we're going to go in with our dark phthalo green, and we're going to start creating some of the shapes for our leaves. And we're just going to go in again on the existing. Now we're going to take our walnut brown, and we're going to create some of these leaf shapes. And we're just going to be really consistent with the ones that are there, and we're just going to make more of them. And don't worry about getting them perfect. Now we're going to take earth green yellowish and do the same thing that we just did with these brown leaves. And we're going to make more of them so that they kind of look like the background leaf that kind of might fade into the background, or that second dimension. We're going to take that dark phthalo green again and just kind of find some more of those leaves and give it a stem down the middle, or a vein down the middle. Now we're going to take our juniper green and do the same thing. I'm going to fill in some of these leaves, and we're going to follow outside of the lines to create this canopy. going to go back in with my dark phthalo green, and I'm going to do some of the background too. And you just kind of want to like spread it out so that all of these colors sort of all merge into one consistent background kind of shape, so that it really reads as dense foliage. And even if you need to go back in with your brown and maybe add a couple more of these leaves, you can use a whole bunch of colors too if you want. You can take, you know, maybe your olive green and make some leaves. Whatever you think will kind of add to that overall look of canopy. And I would vary the size of your leaves, just so you're tricking the eye a little bit more. All right, now that our leaves are done, we're going to do that same kind of technique here on these bushes and on the grass around it. And first we're going to start with our lightest colors, and again, imagining that sunlight point coming, we're going to highlight the bushes where we think that the sun will hit, which is kind of on these edges here. Kind of following these lines too. And then I'm going to do this other side, I'm sorry. Okay. Then we're going to take our next lightest color, which for me is the earth green yellowish. And we're going to try to be a little bit inconsistent, so don't just follow this line here. Try to be a little bit more organic with it. Do the same over here, and this one's going to be a little bit darker. I just wanted that light color right up against the edges, again remembering our light source. Now we're going to move to our leaf green, and we're going to be really light-handed with this one, just because this one is a little bit of a neon kind of color. I don't want it to be too crazy bright. Same thing with this dark phthalo green. This one's a little bit bright as well, so we're just going to be very light with this one. just so we're toning down that neon aspect to it. Now, I'm going to take the juniper green. I'm going to go along the bottom. And then I'm actually going to go over almost over all these other colors, just so that we're sort of burying some of these transitions here. Leaving some of the highlighted areas. And if you need to, hold your pencil back here and you'll kind of resist that urge to press a little bit harder. I know that's hard for some people, including me. So if you hold your tip a little bit forward away from your fingers, like this, it'll be a little bit harder to put too much pressure on it. Now I'm going to take my earth green yellowish, which is kind of like a nice moss color, and I'm going to go over the whole thing one more time. Just to soften some of these transitions even more, and then also just to catch any white spots that I may have left. Now I'm going to take my walnut brown that I used in the trees, and I'm just going to use it to just kind of dirty up the bushes a little bit, just to create a little bit of shadow and maybe some spots where it's kind of imperfect, little blemishes, just kind of underneath here just a little bit, just to create a little bit of the illusion that these are little branches coming out. Maybe some brown here on the skirt. Now we're going to go back in and finish our tree trunks. And I'm going to use two colors. I'm going to use that same walnut brown, and then I'm adding in this burnt sienna color. And the burnt sienna, I'm going to have, again, where I think the light's kind of hitting it. So I'm going to follow this edge right here. I forgot to do the grassy bits too. I'll go back in and do those. I don't know about you guys, but there's always something I forget to do. And then I have to go back in and remember what color I used. And then finding those little areas of highlight, or I'm sorry, not highlight, but emphasis, and going back over them with the darker color. And then anything that you think is kind of inside that tree canopy, maybe make a little bit darker, just because it'll be a little bit more difficult for the light to get in there. And any little branches that may have gotten a little bit too muddied by our green, you can go back in with your brown. Just kind of give those a little bit of new life. And you can just kind of create a little bit of wood grain, if you'd like, with that darker brown over the light sections. Let's go back in and do the grass because I forgot the grass. And right underneath this tree, kind of in the same shape, and do some shadow. And then we're gonna sort of do some pockets. Using various pressure, so you've got some dark, some light. We're going to go back in with our walnut brown to make even more of a shadow. And you just want to go straight down from here because you're going to see too much of a shadow right there. and then bring it outward, because remember, if the sunlight's coming this way, this whole tree is going to cast a shadow. So this side's going to be quite a bit darker. And you don't just want to do straight brown, because you want to be able to see that green through it. Now we're going to pull out two new colors, Pine Green and Chromium Green Opaque. And we're just going to use these darker colors to fill in some of these areas here. I know it looks a little splotchy now, but we're going to go back in and clean that up and blend it all together. I'm just going to alternate. And I'm going to do straight up and down motions. I'm not going to do too many circular, because I want it to emulate that grass standing straight up kind of texture. So just remember that when you're coloring. Short strokes. To give it that grassy texture. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing over here. Make sure you're covering that brown too, just to get rid of any white little marks that were left there from missing it before. And again, just alternating. A little bit darker here in the corner by the wall. Then staying with this chromium green, I'm just going to go over it again really nicely. Again, in that up and down motion, we're just going to fill in all these little white spots. And that same motion is going to blend all these colors together. See? Alright. So I've done these trees up here, and this one I've used my blender pencil on. And before I did this one, I just wanted to show you how kind of rough it looked before I used the blender. And I'm just going to finish this one up so that you can see that I'm just going to take my juniper and just go over it again in some of these lighter areas so that just the treetops are kind of kissed with that sunlight. And then I've got the darker towards the bottom here near the rooftops. So I don't know if you guys can see, but this is, you know, I can see all my brush, or my brush marks, my pencil marks. And so I'm gonna take my blender pencil and I'm just gonna go in and just blend all of these together. And it's just gonna take away all those pencil marks. It's gonna leave all of my nice color variation, but it's just gonna take away a little bit of the white spaces, fill in all the gaps. And I especially need it down here near the darker areas. I'm just gonna work it from the bottom up towards the top. And up towards the top, I'm gonna do kind of circular motions so that I, again, don't bring those pencil marks up into the top, because if against the light color, you're gonna be able to see them really well. There we go. And then you can kind of go back in with maybe your walnut brown, and you can just kind of put on a little bit more shadow if you want. You could even kind of dirty it up here by the chimneys and the roof line. Thanks so much for watching. That does it for part 2. Please join me next time for the continuation of part 3, possibly more after that to follow. If you'd like to learn more about me and my projects, you can check me out on PencilStash.com, Instagram, or Facebook. Thanks so much for joining me. Keep coloring. Bye!